Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Okay, first of all, on behalf of the organizing team, which is Majlis Ta'lim An-Nur, I would like to extend our appreciation and gratitude to all participants joining us today from the International Islamic University Malaysia, including our respected scholar, Associate Professor Dr. Mega, and all professors and doctors who are joining us today, and even staff who accepted our invitation, and also to our guests from outside IIUM, including those joining us from outside Malaysia. Today marks the beginning of our Prolegomena guided reading session, which will run over 8 meetings. In this series, we will focus specifically on the profound chapter, Degrees of Existence, from Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Attas' work, Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. Throughout these sessions, we aim, inshallah, to explore the text in depth, guided by our expert, to have a bit of understanding of metaphysics of Islam. So allow me to briefly introduce our speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Megawati Moris. She is our lecturer here in Usuluddin and Comparative Religion and Philosophy, who specialize in philosophy. So he did his master in Islam. Wait, there's some technical. So Dr. Megawati has wrote a lot of writings. Some that I can highlight here is on Al-Ghazali's influence on Malay thinkers, a study of Shaykh Abdul Samad Al-Palimbani. He also wrote his thesis on Mula Sadra, Doctrine of the Primacy of Existence, which is Asalatul Wujud. And also he wrote on Pengaruh dan Penghayatan Kitab Ihya Ulumuddin Al-Ghazali di Dunia Melayu. He wrote Ibn Arabi Concept of Dreams, and also Islamization of the Malay Worldview, Sufi Metaphysical Writings. So throughout this session, you are most welcome to ask questions, either at the end of the talk or at any point during the discussion. You may type your question in the chat box, or if you prefer, at the Q&A session, you can unmute your microphone to ask directly. And lastly, we will be sharing a Google form for attendance confirmation. This will be announced either in the middle or at the end of the event. So please make sure to fill in this form before you leave. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Megawati Moris. Welcome, Dr.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Hubayb. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. My Lord, expand for me my chest, ease for me my task, and untie the knot from my tongue, that they may understand my speech. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the first guided reading session on the degrees of existence from Prof. Muhammad Naqib Al-Attas' book Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. Thank you for taking the time to attend this session. How the idea of this class started is when two of my former students and now postgraduate students, brothers Arif and Hubayb, approached me on behalf of Dr. Ayman Al-Akiti and Majlis Ta'lim An-Nur whether I could conduct a reading class on this topic, since there is interest from students to know and understand more on this topic. I was very happy to hear the news of the students' interest and enthusiasm about Islamic metaphysics generally and Prof. Al-Attas' writings specifically. And since it was during the semester break, I agreed to the request. Thank you, Datuk Dr. Aiman Al-Akiti and Majlis Ta'lim An-Nur for the invitation. However, I would like to mention my apprehension in conducting these classes on Prof. Al-Attas' works, since I was just his student and research fellow in ISTAC during the late 90s and early 2000s, and would not consider myself an expert in this area. In fact, I consider myself still a student and I'm still learning on this not very easy topic related to the worldview of Islam, life and thought of Islam. I humbly hope that I can do justice to his writings and seek forgiveness from him and to the participants of this class if there are errors in my understanding and interpretation of the content. The schedule for the classes is that we will have a total of 8 classes during the months of August and September. The article comprises the article, the degrees of existence, which, as you know, is the last chapter before the epilogue of the book Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. All right, so why did we choose this last chapter? Well, because of the fact that the students asked me, all right, to do this guided reading session for that chapter. Although, all right, we can say that the 2 chapters prior to this last chapter we would consider to be the foundation or the background, all right, of what we will discuss in the this chapter. But I think it is all right. You know, all is not in vain. All right, because the first chapter related to the topic on existence, which is the intuition of existence. All right, we would consider, although, you know, we will look at it in terms of ontology or the metaphysics, but focusing, all right, on epistemology, all right, basically the knowledge, all right, that we get, all right, from metaphysics, all right, or the ontology, which the reality, all right, the reality of existence or being. And then the second related chapter, which is on the quiddity and essence. All right, it would have been ideal if we could go, we could look at that chapter first before this third chapter. But well, we don't have as much time because I don't know really what is the program, all right, or the plan for reading this book. All right, so we focus on the last chapter, but all right, as I say, we should be, you know, nothing is in vain, because in this chapter on the last degrees of existence, all right, Prof. Al-Attas do, all right, because he does explain, all right, he does explain about the important fundamental elements that are covered in the first 2 chapters. So as we go along in the reading, all right, if there are things which need explanation or elaboration, all right, we will inshallah do it, all right, but we can't go in depth, all right, as what is the best method. But anyway, if there is time, you know, if this program continues, then we can go back to the first 2 chapters. All right, and from my experience as a student of Islamic metaphysics and philosophy, all right, we all, you know, it's best, all right, it's best to start with the most difficult, all right, and as you know, all right, and as is evident in our Islamic intellectual tradition and studies, we start with metaphysics. All right, we start with the metaphysics of Islam, which is the most difficult topic. All right, so then the other areas of thought or the other aspects of thought, all right, or studies become much simpler. All right, much simpler, and you have more holistic and comprehensive understanding, all right, of all the sciences that come after it. All right, so and also, you know, we believe in the Malay proverb of berakit-rakit ke hulu, all right, berenang-renang ke tepian, bersakit-sakit or bersusah-susah dahulu, berenang bersenang-senang kemudian. All right, in the sense that, you know, and this was my experience when I did my master's thesis on Mula Sadra. You know, it was a very, very difficult time I had to understand. But then after that, all right, things become much simpler. I mean, simpler, all right, because you have understood the most fundamental and you would say the most complex concepts, all right, of you would say the Islamic worldview. Okay, so if the schedule for the classes during this break, all right, is the total of 8 classes. All right, the article comprises of about 50 pages. So if we intend to complete the article, all right, that's our plan, but Allah is the best of planners. We will have to read about 6 to 7 pages for each class session. Well, usually 6 to 7 pages, you know, you can just do it in just, you know, maximum of 10 minutes, even for a simple book. But believe me, as we go along in during the class session, all right, 6, 7 pages is like 60, 70 pages. All right, so if we want to go really in depth, all right, so I would assume, so I think if we cannot finish, then, you know, we will try to have more classes after, all right, with your permission, of course. All right, so I would assume that the participants in the class have been exposed to some degree, all right, or aspects of Islamic philosophy and Prof. Al-Attas writings. As we go along also, I would recommend some basic readings related to this topic on the degrees of existence to help make understanding easier. I will either give the PDF or the link to the admin or the admin assistants or Brother Hubaib, who is currently doing his master's thesis with me. All right, so I see him rather often. All right, so that would be on the reading class. So let's go, all right, to the subject matter. All right, so first and foremost, all right, we have to understand what we mean, all right, by Islamic metaphysics. All right, as you know, the title of this book, all right, written by Prof. Muhammad Nakib Al-Attas, all right, is Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. All right, so I would like to start with the, you know, short definition because our focus is still on the text, all right, the 50 over pages of the text. So what Prof. Al-Attas means, all right, and as what most Muslim scholars, all right, or philosophers mean by Islamic metaphysics, all right, is the science of ultimate reality. All right, and as you can see, all right, so it's, you know, it is evident, all right, this is also what Prof. Al-Attas mean by metaphysics, all right, is the science of the ultimate reality or the science of being. All right, the word being and existence, all right, are used interchangeably. All right, or the Arabic wujud, Okay, so it's the science of being or meta being. And if you know, this is just general. Then as we plot through the text, then you will see, the what do you call, the elaborations, the details, all right, of the general statements that we make in the beginning of the class. All right, so and it's the science of meta being, that means beyond being, or also non-being. All right, in the sense that, all right, meta being, beyond being, so something which is beyond being is therefore non-being, right? Not being, because well, I tend to try to jump a bit, but anyway, all this is in the book. All right, I would think, all right, I can say this is the most detailed, all right, exposition of Islamic metaphysics, all right, written in English, all right, by a contemporary Muslim scholar, all right. So it's the science of the ultimate reality of being, science of being, or meta being, or not, or even non-being, all right. And it's the manifestation, all right, of pure being in the world of existence, all right. So there are also terms which preferences by scholars to use the terms, all right, manifestations. If I can, if my memory, all right, is what do you call, is working well, all right, Prof. Al-Attas prefers to use the word determination, self-revelation, all right, although he does use sometimes manifestation, all right, or be in the world of existence and the levels of existence, all right. So this is what we are going to do in this chapter. And the levels of existence that issue from being, all right. So basically that's what Islamic metaphysics is, all right, in the technical sense. But of course, all right, we will, as we go along also in the reading class, we will look at the implications, all right, the theological implications, the implications on worldview, or in fact, all right, what is of existential importance to us, all right, is the implications, of on our own individual existence as well, all right. So because many students, all right, think that philosophy is very universal, is a universal science, and I remember Prof. Al-Attas say, people think that philosophy is, people think that the philosophers, all right, they just stay on at the top of the coconut tree, all right, with their heads in the clouds, all right, and they are not grounded, all right, in the real world, which of course is a myth, all right, because for us to be grounded in the world, we must, all right, we must know the universal, all right, we must have universal knowledge to know the particulars. We must have a comprehensive worldview of things, all right. We must have, now that we know what is metaphysics, we must have knowledge of the science of ultimate reality, which is how we know and understand God, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all right. So so we are not, and we can see also from Al-Attas in this chapter that he is not, he does not mean metaphysics in the Aristotelian sense that, we teach in philosophy, and they say that it basically starts from Aristotle, since Aristotle's was the one who first, all right, introduced in a sense the term metaphysics, all right, metaphysics. And I always, to make things simple in my class, I always say the science above physics. All right, so metaphysics, but actually it specifically mean the book which Aristotle wrote after he wrote the book on physics. All right, but we don't go into details in class. So of course, if you study intellectual history, all right, especially from the Western perspective, they will say that it basically, it starts from Aristotle. All right, and then they will, some scholars of course will say that, well, Islam doesn't have its own metaphysics, all right, in the philosophical sense. All right, well, we talk about Allah Ta'ala, his divine names and attributes, but we don't have that equivalent of Islamic metaphysics. All right, there are of course debates that go on about this. All right, and we study that. All right, as a student of philosophy, we have to study, all right, the intellectual history of the Muslims and the West also. But that is not what Prof. Al-Attas, all right, means by Islamic metaphysics. All right, and this is evident from the chapter that we will be reading. All right, so I can give an example, all right, from the first Islamic philosopher. Well, he's considered the first Islamic philosopher by and large. They say that there were philosophers before Al-Kindi, all right, it's just that they didn't write systematically, or their writings were not extant, all right, and he basically was the first, all right. You can consider him, all right, to be the first Islamic philosopher of in our tradition. All right, and for Al-Kindi, all right, in his book Fil Falsafatil Ula, all right, he says, which is parts are translated, all right, which he says that metaphysics is the science of divine things. All right, so as is the same when we talk about ultimate reality, the manifestations of pure being into the world of existence and the levels of existence, divine things. And he describes it as the noblest and highest of all kinds of philosophy, because the object of its investigation is the highest and noblest of all beings. All right, makes sense. All right, so if we agree with these Islamic philosophers and scholars, then metaphysics would be, all right, the first subject, all right, that we or science or discipline that we should master. All right, so and then, okay, now we go to the last, you would say the last classical Islamic philosopher who established, all right, who founded the school Al-Hikmah Al-Muta'aliyah, all right, the school of transcendent theosophy, Mullah Sadra or Sadruddin Shirazi. And he wrote in his book Kitab Al-Mashair, the book of metaphysical penetrations, and he wrote, all right, that he discussed the issues of wujud, all right, which is the subject matter of metaphysics, in his various books and treatises, all right, for the sake of approaching closer to God, taqarrub ilallah. So if we want many students do not perhaps grasp the meaning and purpose of why do we have to do this metaphysics, since it's as you can see, all right, later it's very, you can see it's very technical, it's very complex in the sense because it's abstract, all right, or because we are dealing with a general concept which cannot be defined. All right, so that's so this is the purpose. He says, so that for the sake of approaching closer to Allah Ta'ala, taqarrub ilallah, and in order to gain access to the origin of all origins, Mabda al-Mabadi, and the beginnings of all beginnings, Awalul al-Awail. All right. So that's the purpose, so that we can know the origin of all things and the beginnings of all beginnings. All right. So basically, the journey of a student of Islamic metaphysics and Islamic philosophy, all right, is this. Okay. So if, you know, there are, of course, students who say very plainly, all right, in the first class of, usually in the first semester, I will ask students, how many of you like philosophy? Raise up your hands. All right, very few. All right, so we can understand that, all right, because it's something, you know, which, because of our, I suppose, our education system, all right, we feel strange, or we are a stranger. All right, we are strangers. Gurbat. All right, gurbah. From this topic. All right, and we shouldn't be, because we are talking about Allah Ta'ala. He shouldn't be a stranger to us. All right, we should be close and intimate to Him. All right, because He knows everything, all right, about this universe and us, and the deepest secrets, all right, of our soul and hearts. All right, so basically, that is in general, all right, the framework of Islamic metaphysics, or metaphysics of Islam. All right, here I also would like to point out, all right, I'm very sorry, but it is necessary that I set up this framework first, all right, because I do not know, basically I assume that most of the participants in this class, all right, have, you know, some kind of knowledge, all right, in Islamic philosophy or Islamic metaphysics, or, all right, I didn't see the attendance, all right, the list of the participants, and if Brother Hubaib says there are professors, please forgive me, you know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, all right, in explaining certain things or in my interpretation, all right, please feel welcome, all right, to give your views or the correct interpretation. If I am wrong, as I say, I'm still a student, all right, in this vast, absolute, or infinite area, all right, of because metaphysics deals with the absolute and the infinite, who is Allah Ta'ala, all right. So I would also like, be patient, all right, before we go to the class, all right, before we go to reading the text, all right. So I would like to also mention about this part of Prof. Al-Attas exposition, all right. Well, I still refer to hard copies, all right, or the hard copies of the text. Well, I'm from the old school, but we do, I will look at the PDF for this class so that everybody also can see it. Where is it? Well, you know, when you want to find a page, even though you put all this, you know, all these small what do you call, markers, all right, stickers. You can't find it when you need it. So anyway, I will, I wanted to quote, all right, Prof. Al-Attas on this, all right, but, okay, I found it. Okay, this sentence, all right, in page 215, all right, he says, so which chapter, so that I know, the intuition of existence, all right, the first chapter on existence. He says the philosophical expression of the transcendent unity of existence, all right, which is the Wahdatul Wujud, which he was discussing, was formulated by Sadruddin Ash-Shirazi, called Mulla Sadra, whose metaphysics bears marked traces of the thoughts of Ibn Sina, Al-Ghazali, Ibn al-Arabi, and Suhrawardi. All right, so, but actually, that is not the chapter, the part which I'm looking. All right, but basically, all right, since we will not waste time on looking for that specific paragraph, but basically, if you want to say what is his sanad, all right, of his exposition of this Prolegomena to the metaphysics of Islam, or like Prolegomena meaning introduction or mukaddimah, all right, or you can say pendahuluan, all right, in Malay. So basically the chain, all right, of this transmission of this intellectual discussion, all right, I think he, if I'm not mistaken, he started from Junaid, all right, and then he mentioned Al-Ghazali, and then he mentioned Ibn al-Arabi, sorry, Al-Ghazali, Ibn al-Arabi, no, Suhrawardi comes first, Ibn al-Arabi, and then if I'm not mistaken, oh, all right, Sidki 214, all right, thank you, Sidki 214. Or just the page before that. Okay, here. The foregoing summary of the salient features, the last paragraph of 214, of the intuition of existence, all right, is it this one? Upon which is based the position of the man of discernment, all right, man and woman of discernment, all right, on the nature of reality, can be traced back in its basic form of expression to the school of Al-Junaid. The school presented the vision of reality as they envisaged it based on the second type of intuition of existence. All right, here he mentions the specific intuition of existence and then the degrees of existence, but basically it's on metaphysics in general, all right, on existence. And he says the intuition of existence, they affirm the transcendent unity of existence, Wahdatul Wujud. Among the notable early representatives of this school after Al-Junaid were Abu Nasr al-Siraj, Ali al-Hujwiri, Abul Qasim al-Kushairi, and Abdullah al-Ansari. To this school also belonged Al-Ghazali, but their chief exponent was Ibn al-Arabi, who first formulated what was originally given in the intuition of existence into an integrated metaphysics, expressed in rational and intellectual terms. That's why I said just now, you can say the sanad, all right, the intellectual sanad, which he received from basically all the scholars. Among his erudite commentators were Sadruddin al-Kunyawi, Abdul Razak al-Kashani, Daud al-Kaisari, Abdul Rahman al-Jami. And if you notice, all right, in the chapter on the degrees of existence, Prof. Al-Attas, all right, refers a lot to Al-Jami. All right, and these are all the commentators of the Ibn Arabi school. All right, of wujud, wahdatul wujud. All right, Abdul Rahman Al-Jami and his doctrine of the perfect man, Al-Insan Al-Kamil. All right, Abdul Rahman Al-Jami is well known for his exposition and his writing on Al-Insan Al-Kamil, and was developed by also, and his doctrine of perfect man was developed by Abdul Karim Al-Jili. All right, sorry, it's Al-Jili. All right, his that book on the perfect man. The philosophical expression and then of the transcendent unity of existence was formulated, as we mentioned, by Mullah Sadra, whose metaphysics bears marked traces of the thoughts of Ibn Sina, Al-Ghazali, Ibn Arabi, and As-Surahwardi. So basically, here it also is, Prof. Al-Attas wants to show that basically his exposition of Islamic metaphysics, all right, is derived from this, all right, this long line, all right, of luminaries of the Islamic intellectual tradition. As you can see, all right, they are made up of philosophers, Sufis, all right, or the and then mutakallimun also, all right. So you can see that this exposition is a integration or a combination of all three different schools of thought. Of course, the terms that we use in our tradition we call Urafa, all right, or the Gnostics, the Hukama, people of with hikmah, or the philosophers refer themselves, all right, to the Hukama, because for them philosophy is hikmah. All right. So yes, so that is basically when you read Prof. Al-Attas' works. All right. Imagine. All right. Imagine that, don't get so preoccupied or boggled down by all the difficult concepts and terms. All right. Just what you would say, just imagine yourself that you're connected to all these luminaries, all right, because you are trying to know about them, trying to understand about their thoughts and views, all right, short of being physically close to them, all right. You are, close to them, all right, in terms of the knowledge, all right. Okay, all right. So there's a student here who raised his hand. There's a participant. All right. I'm sorry if you're not a student. Do you want to ask the question now? Because Hubaib said just now, you can ask the question whenever, wherever, whatever.
It's more up to you. Okay? It's more up to you. Okay?
Sorry?
If it's more up to you, if you feel comfortable.
All right. Yeah, because if you, allow me, I will just ramble on. All right. So that's not good also. We'll have a, a two-way, you would say, conversation or dialogue. All right. We'll have the Socratic method. All right. So I saw Faiz. Go ahead, Faiz. Yes. Oh, salah tekan. All right. So anyway, all right. So any questions in relation to the introduction? By all means, please ask. All right, Ain. All right. My master student. All right. Yes, Ain.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Could you hear me just now?
Yes, clear.
All right. Thank you.
Doctor, in relation to Mullah Sadra's quotation just now about the metaphysics being the way we can access to the divine, I want to know how do we articulate it in a term where, for example, in comparison with Kant, Immanuel Kant, when he says that we cannot access the nomena. And also we have this hadith when like usually people will use this hadith when we study about the divine, we philosophize about the divine, because the hadith say think about Allah but don't think about his zat. So with all
Don't
this,
think about Allah, but don't
think about Allah but don't think about his zat. Is
About
that the hadith?
but don't think about his
Zat, his essence.
all right, his essence.
Okay, I mean it's not really directly related, but to to how do we situate all these statements in a more harmonious manner?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ain. I think that's a very good and important question to ask. All right, at this stage of what do you call? Oh, okay. Somebody there wrote about don't ask about his that. All right. At this stage, before we start, or on this very relevant, it's very relevant to your question. All right. Yes. First, in terms of Kant, okay, as you know, Kant says that we cannot know things as they are in themselves. All right. Which you say basically we do not know about noumena. All right. We only know about phenomena. All right. Phenomena being in terms of the things in this world, all right, the visible or the seen or things which we can perceive, all right, or the physical world, all right. So he says, because we, in a sense, he is saying we cannot know God, but the things of the metaphysical world, all right. So so he says basically, then how do we know God? So he says it's all based on experience, all right. And we know that Kant was pious, all right, was pious Christian. He goes supposedly, all right, he goes, to church every Sunday, all right, but he did a very, you would call a disservice, all right, to metaphysics. And therefore, that's why after Kant, all right, beginning from Descartes, all right, and then Kant, the West didn't ignore metaphysics, because for them, they say, why should we focus on something, where we cannot have knowledge of those things, all right? So, but here, Prof. Al-Attas is saying, he affirms, all right, knowledge and reality of being. That means we can know, all right, about being. And basically, when he talks about metaphysics, is the science of ultimate reality, all right? So that's why Kant, even though he's a great philosopher, and especially in terms of his philosophy and ethics, all right, and he didn't, because of, well, in all good intention, in all intents and purposes, all right, because he wanted to delineate, all right, or separate what the human mind can know and what the human mind cannot know, all right. So, and because he is a rationalist, all right, he's a rationalist. So, but from the Islamic position, all right, perspective, Mullah Sadra, for example, saying for us to know the origin of all things, the origin of origins and the beginning of beginnings, all right, that means he is affirming that we can know, all right. And as so now, as that's why it's important, these degrees of existence, all right, Prof. Al-Attas is wanting to demonstrate that, all right, the science of ultimate reality, all right, which is, you can say, the subject, has many levels. That's why degrees or levels of existence. And if you see, and as it contains in the definition, all right, there is that absolutely the first level of existence, all right, which is the absolute, and that absolute, all right, which is called meta being. That means beyond being or non-being. So Mullah Sadra and Prof. Al-Attas, all right, in his text will say that is the first, you would say, the first degree. All right, and if you can turn to page 274, all right, I hope the what do you call PDF is the same, has the same numbers, but that diagram or chart which he shows, that is the essence of the ultimate reality. And that essence of the ultimate reality, which is existence. And later we will see that existence, all right, cannot be known by the mind, but the experience. All right, because how can we know something? We can only know about things when it comes that when because they exist. Right? We cannot talk about things which do not exist. Well, we can say the definition of something which doesn't exist is that it is impossible to exist because there is inherent contradiction in the definition itself. For example, all right, a square triangle. That square triangle cannot exist. All right, so, and we can only know about and discuss about things which exist. Right? But, and that falls under the concept of existence. All right, so here, all right, so, but that first level of being, which is absolute, all right, which is this al-ama, all right, Prof. Well, I will spoil your fun, you know, if I were to explain it now, all right, but anyway, so that is that absolutely unknowable. We cannot know at that level. So if you want to analyze, all right, your question in the sense of Kant, saying that noumena, all right, he is saying that that is the level. Yes, of course, that is the level we cannot know. But there are the other levels, all right, of existence which we can know. All right, especially in relation to the visible world, the physical world, all right, and then of course, as for us as Muslims, all right, we can know through reason, we can know through intuition, we can know through revelation, all right, about the invisible worlds, right? Which, so in terms of epistemology, all right, we are not like Kant or now the Western philosophers. So if something which our mind cannot know, forget about it. And but Kant, even though he says that it's experience, and we say that he's a believer, and you know he adheres to his religion, all right, Christianity. But why I say he did a disservice is that when you say there's no knowledge attached, all right, to those things, those divine things, all right, then you do not study that as a specific discipline or a specific science. For you, then you say it's just experience. But then how do you verify it? All right, if, for example, you do not consider it as a science. All right. And therefore, slowly, as we see now, metaphysics is forgotten or neglected, especially in postmodernist philosophy. All right. They say that, there's no such thing as the truth or the real or reality. All right. It's very subjective. So that's my answer to your question. So perhaps, all right, Kant is just referring to that level. But as we see from this chapter, why is it so important? Okay, that there is that highest level which we cannot know. All right, our human intelligence is mind or intelligence is limited. If we know, then we are God, because at that level only He Himself knows Himself, in Himself, by Himself. But Allah, all right, like Allah Ta'ala, like Prof. Al-Attas say, and again here, that's why I wanted to mention the sanad, all right, or of transmission of this metaphysics of Islam as expounded, all right, by Prof. Al-Attas. So I do not have to mention the previous scholars, all right, but you can see in his footnotes, all right, and as he mentioned categorically, all right, it's from for example, Ibn Arabi. Okay, so so as Prof. Al-Attas was saying, okay, what is this you would say the ontological, yes, all right, when he was mentioning that Allah at that level, all right, is Al-Ama, the mist. All right, we use metaphorical language. We use metaphorical language or majazi when we cannot use logical language. But it gives us the sense, all right, of the meaning of what we call Allah Ta'ala, God, all right, at that level. And he calls it, and that's the level, all right. I will just say he, but the tradition that he represents, all right, Prof. Al-Attas represent, is the hidden treasure, all right, the kanzan mahfiyan, kuntu kanzan mahfiyan, all right, I was her hidden treasure, and I loved to be known. Therefore, I created creation so that I may be known. And this is what Prof is wanting to show, that self-revealing aspect. All right, the self-revealing aspect, so that we may know Him. But there are levels. All right, there are levels. That highest level we do not know, but there are other levels, and as he show us in this chapter, all right, he elaborated, explained, all right, the different levels before this level of this earth, all right, or this physical world which we are living and experiencing. All right, and here what I wanted to mention is in the degrees, all right, of existence, he says in this aspect, all right, he is already swayed, page 270, as it were, by love. Who Allah created in this world, all right, because of love. Who, like the kuntu kanzan mafiyan, all right, and he says, I love to be known. All right, so he says here he's already swayed by love. That's what I said just now. All right, when we say it's too difficult and all that, all right, it's not easy to love. All right, listen to this. All right, this is an old aunt's advice. All right, because in love, you have to make many sacrifices. We always forget that love is something, yes, of course, it represents a stage of, you know, a lower level of its, of happiness, bliss, whatever you may call it, all right? But that pain, that pleasure, all right, must also be, you would say, or pleasure or happiness also balanced by pain. All right, that's later you will see Prof. Al-Attas is saying about opposites. That's why there's black, white, there's happiness, sadness, there is knowledge, there is ignorance. Right? There's, well, the most fundamental, there's male, there's female. All right? Only he is one. Okay, so love by, and so if we, so you must sacrifice to a certain extent in terms of studying metaphysics. Spend some time thinking, you know, trying to understand things, reading the books, because in that pain, or you would say pain, all right, I'm talking about, you know, students who find it difficult and painful, as when, you know, they speak to me, all right, or you, as you go along, you will feel, trust me, the love, all right, the hope, or the rahmah, because he created this world, all right, based on, and one of the levels, all right, where creation begins, or the self-revelation, all right, begins, is nafas ar-Rahman, the breath of the merciful. So when people say to you, all right, so here I'm just trying to, if you say this is too, you know, abstract for me, well, I'll go down to the concrete for you. If people say you must, you know, like for example, our IIUM song says Rahmatan lil Alamin, all right, the Prophet, all right, and they say, you know, when you're going through difficulties and troubles, and you know, they will always say that Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, and we always say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. All right, he wants us to call him but in the name of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Do you think it's just mere words? No. All right, that is the metaphysical essence of his nature, because his mercy precedes his wrath. All right, his rahmah precedes his ghadab, the anger, or the wrath. All right, so that is basically the meaning. That's why they say never, all right, give up on God's mercy. Why? Because this whole universe, all right, is created by his mercy, of his mercy, with his mercy. And that is the nafas ar-Rahman. And like Prof says, it's swayed by love, swayed by love, his knowledge. I mean, his, you would say, I love to be known, or they say desire to be known, is because he loves to be known. So if you ever think your problems, all right, remember this metaphysical principle, which is the foundation of all existence. Love, rahmah. What's your problem? It's small, very small. And don't worry, it will be overcome. That's the thing which I want to emphasize. If you think it is insurmountable, all right, it's unsolvable, all right, I give up, you know, whatever, I leave. All right, of course, sometimes it's good to leave. That's the right decision. But just remember about this, all right? And you get that from this very metaphysical chapter, all right, on the degrees of existence. All right, so, yes. So, I also asked just now about I think the hadith you said about, don't think about God's essence. Think about they say you can contemplate or you can know about his names and divine attributes. All right, the divine attributes, the asifat ilahiyah here, okay, and then the level of his acts. All right, remember the 3 levels. We are not talking about his that. Yes, we don't contemplate on his that. Even though Prof talks about his that, he doesn't contemplate in the sense that, all right, in the sense that that aspect which we cannot know. But here, okay. But then when you talk about the experience, you experience the whole reality. See, that's the difference. Okay, later we will, briefly explain that. The reality, are we experiencing God at the level of essence or at the level of his acts or at the level of his divine names of attributes? All right, because then you will say, the mutakalimun, for example, the theologians always are very careful about maintaining his oneness. All right, that he is one. That's why, like, for example, the Mutazila, why, they say that his essence, his Allah's essence and his attributes are one and the same thing, because if you say attributes also have another level, also exist, this is their logic, of course. All right, therefore then you say there are many eternals, or then therefore you are saying many realities, which goes against, all right, the oneness or the divine unity, all right, of Allah Ta'ala. So that is basically, yes, it's a tricky problem. So when you experience, what are you experiencing? Well, Allah is one. You are experiencing, his mercy, his love. All right, and there are philosophers who experience more also, all right, more explicitly. For example, like Mullah Sadra, and then he formulated a philosophy based on that experience of wujud. Okay, so I hope I explained. Okay, so yes, my explanation would be long, but I think we have to do justice. If I explain, in a truncated fashion, all right, it would be problematic sometimes when students have come to me. I thought you said this, doctor. In the other class you said this. Like accusing me of contradiction. All right. See, so now I'm very careful. All right. It's not that I'm not careful before, but about this fragmented knowledge. All right. So that's why Islamic metaphysics is so important. All right. You will put all the fragments or the pieces together. All right, so you won't get fragmented knowledge. All right, and you won't experience confusion. All right, of course, a certain level of confusion and all that, misinterpretation. All right, so it clears up. All right, the mist. Okay, so I hope I have answered your question. Very good question. All right. Okay. So now
there's another question at the chat box from
all right. How chat box? Where is it? This one? Share screen. This one?
do
Which
you
one?
want to read it for you?
Okay. Wait. Is it here? The 3 dots here? So I have not used Google Meet for some time. I use
it's at the right, at the nearest right. You will see there's a number of participants, people there, 84, and then at the right of that, there's chat box. Bottom right.
Oh, you know what? It says here, your internet connection is unstable. Huh?
I see.
Here. Okay.
Okay.
Where? Full screen? Open
No.
picture in pic.
Okay, at the bottom right, there will be meeting tools, and then at the left side of that, there will be checkbox.
Oh, meeting tools. Okay. All right.
Left of that, left of meeting
Meeting
tools.
tools.
I can read it for you, Dr.
Oh, all right. You know, it's just that it's not that I just want to learn. This is the only way I learn how to use
Sure,
things,
sure.
right? Ah, okay. Oh, Haris Irshad Sain, is it?
Above, Sipki, question above.
Where is it? You read for me, all right.
Okay.
Which one?
Okay. Say
In call
that
messages?
previously you mentioned Al-Kindi as the first Muslim philosopher under the context of the excerpts that we have just read. We are familiar that Prof often denoted the Sufis as metaphysicians. May we hear more comments from you on the particular distinction pertaining to the penisbatan philosopher and metaphysician under the context of the discussion today?
Ah, all right. Who is that? Haris?
Sidki.
Sidki. You see, Sidki, he's an advanced student. All right. Well, Sidki, you have to be patient. All right, because Prof. Al-Attas does answer that question. Okay, he answers the question later after he summarized already the degrees of existence. All right, after he summarized the degrees of existence, then he goes into elaborating. Okay, this is what the philosophers believe in relation to the topic, of course, in terms of metaphysics or being, existence, wujud. All right, and he says, so these are the differences, all right, of the philosophers, all right, of the theologians, the mutakallimun. All right, you can see in page 299. All right, so we haven't gone that far yet. All right, Sidki. Page 299, pages 299, pages 300. All right, and then 302. As you can see, the Sufi metaphysicians. All right, page 302. Then maintain that in addition to existence, all right, at the levels of A, B, and C, all right, that's where it does get complicated. All right, so he explained. All right, so you have to be patient until we get there. I can go through it, all right, but then what about the pages before 299, all right, which basically is the objective, all right, of this course, to go start from the beginning. It's a guided reading, right, Sidki? Mention Al-Kindi as the opening. All right, oh, yeah, so Prof, all right, distinguish between the three, and he distinguished between the philosophers, all right, the mutakallimun or the theologians, and then the Sufi metaphysicians, he called them. All right, so here he is saying that basically he is following the Sufi metaphysician position. But at the same time, he is trying to explain to us how they differ. And if you see, all right, the difference, and he does say, where are the similarities? Where are the differences? So then, as you can see, all right, because, you know, he took from these scholars as well. All right, so, but of course, for him, all right, the final say, all right, in terms of is the Sufi metaphysicians. All right, perhaps because the Sufi metaphysicians, all right, they have all the sources of knowledge, all right, available to them or made available to them, including intuition of existence, or, you know, what they call direct knowledge, or ilmu dhaq, or ilmu mukashafa, or mushahada, you know, all those, all right, or the light of knowledge which Allah Ta'ala casts directly to our chest, all right, or our heart, or, you know, so he affirms, you know, that is the the differences, and finally is the Sufi metaphysicians. All right. So first, as usual, all right, Prof is doing it systematically. First, you must understand all this. All right, the degrees of existence, and then so that you may not be confused. Like just now, what is it that Kant says that we cannot know about noumena? Of course, we are looking at it from the Islamic perspective when he talked about noumena. All right, how we understand his saying that limitation. Okay, so before we can say which perspective of view, all right, is the real or the true representation of metaphysics, all right, or the science of ultimate reality, then, okay, we have to know all their differences and similarities. Then only we can say, all right, we agree with this view, But at the same time, like Prof says, he's not discarding the views of the other scholars from the different intellectual traditions of philosophy, kalam, or akidah, all right, or ilmu tawhid, or how the different sciences are called, falsafah or hikmah, all right, philosophy, or tasawuf, or irfan, or ma'rifah, all right. He doesn't discard. He takes all of them into consideration, all right. And then okay, so here he explained, okay, doctor, it's just due that you mentioned Al-Kindi as the opening, so that caught my mind. All right, yeah. He's trapping me here, all right, because why? All right, as you know, all right, I have other important tasks to do also. So the first book that came to me, because Mullah Sadra, because I am I know about the subject because of my master's thesis, and why Al-Kindi, because I always do it in my history of Islamic philosophy class. And history of Islamic philosophy, we touch on him first because he is generally known to be the first Islamic philosopher. All right, I hope that satisfies you. Okay, Sidki. Okay, why Al-Kindi? Well, my question to you, why not Al-Kindi? Okay, why not Al-Kindi? Okay, yeah. So, how about Al-Farabi, doctor? Well, Al-Farabi was, in a way, the teacher of Ibn Sina, maybe not directly, but Ibn Sina said he didn't understand Aristotle's, a problem in Aristotle, and he read the text, all right, 50 times, he says, until, he said, he found the explanation in Al-Farabi's book. All right. So definitely, all right, Al-Farabi comes from, as a school, as a thinker and scholar, all right, he comes from the same school, philosophical school of Ibn Sina, all right, the great metaphysician, or they call him in the West the philosopher of being par excellence, all right. So because of his influence, not only in the Islamic world, but also in the Western world, all right, the Latin world. So how about Al-Farabi? Well, he's in the same school, the school of Al-Falsafa Al-Mashi'iyah, the peripatetic school, all right, the Islamic peripatetic school, because peripatetic school, all right, basically started, is Aristotle's school of philosophy. But because they are coming after Aristotle, all right, as you read the text, they are influenced, all right, in the sense of using some terms, concepts, all right, from Greek philosophy. So they call themselves also the Mashi'iyah, which is the walkers, right, peripatetic, the walkers. So Al-Farabi, I would say, all right, they are from the same school. Therefore, many of the ideas, all right, or his views, Ibn Sina, basically also extracted, all right, or from Al-Farabi. And as you can see, you know, I'm saying from the, if you trace their ideas, they do take from Aristotle, all right, and Plato and Plotinus, but as I mentioned all the time, but it's still Islamic, all right, it's still Islamic philosophy, all right, or here Islamic metaphysics. Okay, so I've answered that question. How about Al-Farabi? He's the second teacher, all right, the first teacher being Aristotle in the Islamic, in the philosophical tradition. All right, of course, for us, the first teacher is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All right, but here in the philosophical tradition. Okay, any questions?
Doctor, as we are still talking about regarding definition of metaphysics, I want to take this chance to ask you. Sometimes as a student, when we read modern texts side by side with classical texts, we do not want to fall into injustice of saying that this classical scholar is talking about metaphysics while they're actually not talking about metaphysics. So how do we define the border like this is? Okay, my question is here is that if you're talking about metaphysics, what is its equivalent in Arabic term? Like Prof. Al-Attas wrote in his book, Ilm al-Haqiqah, or the philosopher, the Mullah Sadra and Ibn Sina, they talk it as Ilahiyah. How is your advice on us, how to navigate this, on not doing that kind of injustice, or saying that this is metaphysics, while it's actually not metaphysics, it's philosophy or theology? Do you understand?
Yeah. All right, simple, right? We always go back to the definition. Okay, so if for us, Islamic metaphysics is the science of divine reality, of the ultimate reality. All right. Then if, for example, if you're saying you're reading the modern text, supposedly you say it's a metaphysical text or on metaphysics, then it's not. If, for example, they have no mention about God, all right, if, for example, they do talk about existence, okay, so if they're not talking about the ultimate reality, all right, because like we mentioned, what's the definition? All right, we talk about, so that's why definitions are important. All right, it is the science of ultimate reality, or the science of being, or in fact meta being or non-being, and the manifestation of pure being in the world of existence and levels of existence that issue from being. Well, perhaps, you know, they are just discussing on this manifestation of in the world of existence, manifestations. They're not talking about the higher levels of existence, perhaps. If, for example, I give you an example about dreams. You know, sometimes we think that the Western psychologists, they're talking basically, this is a metaphysical text or a philosophical text, you say, because they are talking about dreams, talking about a level higher than the physical or the material world. All right, they're talking about the world of imagination, all right, or images in the mind that occur. All right, but where do these dreams come from? Usually, all right, from what I have read in terms of the concept of dreams, for example, by Freud or Carl Jung, all right, they don't go to that higher level of reality from which all things derive or originate. That's why Mullah Sadra said the origin of all origins. You know, so it's like a truncated knowledge. They talk about, you know, they talk about these dreams, all right, but they don't go to the highest level. You know, they go to the level of, for example, the imaginative faculty, or you would say what do they, I'm not very well versed in terms of terminology in Western psychology. I know their perspective and roughly their ideas, but all right, they do talk about the level of subconscious, or how they view dreams. All right, but from the Islamic perspective, when you talk about dreams, you are talking about ontology or metaphysics. You are talking about being. Why? All right, because you recognize about the alamul barzah, the intermediate world. All right, the intermediate world between the spiritual world, alamul arwah, or alamul ruhani, and the alamul jismani, the physical world, which is the intermediate realm. According to Ibn Arabi, he says that whatever, so dreams happen in that intermediate realm of the human consciousness, or the human being. But it also corresponds, all right, to the ontological, the world out there, between the spiritual and the physical world, or especially in relation to true dreams. True dreams, al-ru'ya as-sadiqa, or al-ru'ya the true dreams, al-ru'ya as-sadiqa, all right, where basically that is knowledge from God, right? True knowledge. You get what you call premonitions, because Allah wants, all right, to give you that knowledge. All right, through dreams only, not that hodgepodge of things, which you dream about at night based on your daily activities. All right, so that is in terms of psychology. Okay, when you say, how do we know? Of course, in terms of philosophy, what is this other important thing, especially if you're reading, you say, modern texts, like modernism, which are more based on modern philosophy, or postmodern. Postmodern, we already know, they deny these meta-narratives, all right, metaphysics. Starting from, if you look at basically from the positivism school, all right, they have put aside metaphysics, right? So, but then you read a text by Jean-Paul Sartre, all right, or Albert Camus, or Nietzsche, or whoever, all right, you especially let's look at Jean-Paul Sartre, all right, because he is the founder of the existentialism school in the West. He talks about existence. He talks about being. But at what level of being is he discussing? He doesn't talk definitely about God, because he's an atheist. And definitely, all right, we know from his philosophy, all right, he says that human beings are ultimately free. I mean, of course, he talks about the absurdity, all right, in the sense that we are free, but at the same time, we live in a society which impose restrictions and expectations on us, which we try to live by, all right, because, if you are a student, you have to follow UIA rules, you have to, your the expectations of your parents, you must bring me a good report card. I mean, you must have a certain CGPA, and you must dress a certain way, think a certain way, and, there are things which you have to abide by, right? The institutions, the family institution. This is what Jean-Paul Sartre was saying. The family institution, the educational institution, whatever institution, we are bound by them, right? But we are supposed to be free, because he says we, all right, can determine our own essence. Meaning, I mean, in the sense that, all right, in terms of our existence as what we want to be, all right. So he is saying that. So he says that that's the absurdity of life. All right, this freedom. Are we really free in that aspect? But we are free. He says, as a human being, we are free because of the fact that he says that there's nothing. You see, that is the dilemma or the controversy, in the sense that he doesn't believe in a higher authority. All right, or definitely not a divine authority. If he says, what is the purpose of life? If you ask an existentialist, all right, they will say, well, that is in my journey. I've yet to find out what is my purpose of life. That is in relation to my existence. So in this sense, there's that never-ending journey of seeking and looking, for goals, for what is meaningful, what is purposeful, right? I mean, that's what young people are facing now, because, they are experiencing a flood of information on social media. And if you watch TikTok, everybody has something to say. Everybody is an expert. I saw, she said she's a psychologist. This one says she's an ustazah. This one says she knows about healing. This one says she has experienced God. This one says he knows what is the meaning of life as a student. All right, everybody is an expert. Everybody wants to tell their point of view. That basically is an existentialist. Why do they? Of course, there are, of course, people, all right, influencers who talk about, what is the goal of a Muslim? What's our goal as a human being? There are people like that. But if you are young, for example, you are not taught all these basic and fundamental things. And, you have a flood of information. So, which is true. Even us, all right, we have knowledge, but still we do not know, all right. Is this true? Is this authentic? Are they talking about metaphysics? Well, they are called existentialists, right? But in our Islamic philosophy tradition, there are also existentialists. The Asalatul Wujud, Mullah Sadra, was they when you translate his philosophical perspective, all right, it is Asalatul Wujud, one who believes in the primacy or the principality of existing, meaning that existence is true and real, right? So that's why it's very important, all right, for us to be grounded, all right, in this fundamental knowledge, all right, metaphysics, Islamic philosophy, so that we can distinguish. All right. Now, of course, you can always ask your teachers if you are, doubtful, because, of course, you are not exposed, for example, to that kind of knowledge. So, but they seem to be talking about metaphysics. They seem to be talking about creation. They seem to be talking about life. They seem to be talking about existence. But what's their perspective? If they say that, life is in the finding, and you have a pessimistic view of life. How can we ever be pessimistic fundamentally or metaphysically when Allah Ta'ala created the universe with love, by love, in love, all right, or by his mercy? All right, so it's but the existentialists, like we say, they talk like, for example, Sat, All right, Sat. He talks about the experience of existence. I can't remember in one of his texts. And he says he feels like darkness is enveloping him. You know, he feels this sense of, you know, darkness and what is the term he used? This foreboding darkness is being in the Islamic perspective darkness? No, the metaphor that we use is light, nur, right? And so what is he experiencing then? He is not lying. Well, he's experiencing the absence of light. So that absence of light, again here I will refer to the text where Prof mentioned about the levels of revelation or manifestation as shadows, because the original is light, like the sun, right? The metaphor, majaz, which is given. So what Sat is experiencing at the lowest level, I mean, from the Islamic perspective, all right, we don't know. I haven't spoken to him personally. Already he has passed away in the 30s. I mean, not in the 20th century, but can't exactly remember. All right, but he did describe his experience of darkness. So if from the Islamic perspective, and if we were to look at the Islamic metaphysical system here, it cannot be God that he's experiencing. It cannot be light. It is not light, right? He didn't mention light. So perhaps that perspective came, all right, or is the result or the cause of his view, wallahu a'lam. All right. So I hope I have explained to you, okay, Ubaid, about this. Well, Khalid Bashir has raised a hand.
Assalamu alaikum. Um,
Walaikum salam.
I'm from the Philippines, and I'm interested in learning about this stuff and reading few books. I would just want to ask, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
what you described earlier regarding the manifestation of existence has somehow a student of philosophy will think that this sounds Neoplatonic. So yeah, and then some Muslims would deny saying that describing Islamic metaphysics as Neoplatonic. So how I want to understand, like, can we how Neoplatonic is Islamic metaphysics, or the views of Ibn Arabi, Mullah Sadra, in terms of the term like emanation.
All right. Right. Thank you for your question. All right. So here, first we talk about this specific text here by Prof. Al-Attas on the degrees of existence. He talked about Al-Faid, Al-Aqdas, the most holy effusion, and Al-Faid, Al-Muqaddas, all right, the holy effusion. He uses the word effusion, all right, not usually Faid. All right, if you read the English translation of philosophical texts or other texts, all right, they use emanation. All right, so I, because I was a student of his long time ago, and I know he is very deliberate in his thinking, in writing, in thinking and writing. He is very, you would say, deliberate, and you can see from his work, how deliberate, how careful, how attentive he is, right? So because of this, he doesn't want, if somebody were to read his book, and then I think this is my view, knowing about him as a student from afar, of course, as a student, although, well, anyway, I know, why he chose the word, because it raises a question to me also. Why did Prof use the word effulgence, or effusion? Why doesn't he just use emanation like others? All right, so because he's very attentive, he's very careful, he's very deliberate. He doesn't want that using the terms, which usually is the case when we use specific terminologies in not the language, in the translated language, all right, not the original, that there will be problems of misinterpretation, all right, misunderstanding, all right, because but there are some scholars who purposely, deliberately use the terms that are being used now, all right, by contemporary scholars. For example, like why for the course I'm teaching, philosophy and ilmul kalam, all right, because our department doesn't want to translate the term ilmul kalam to theology, all right, because already first, all right, ilmu kalam and theology is not the same, all right, but if you use the word theology, since after all it's in English, then why not use it? But then they say no, all right, because people will have, all right, assumptions, preconceived ideas or assumptions, so we just stick. After all, it's an Islamic university, and the department is Usuluddin. Why not we just stick to the original Arabic language of our intellectual tradition, or Islamic intellectual tradition? All right, one of the languages, Arabic. There are other languages, Persian, Urdu, Hindi, Malay, all right, now English, all right. So anyway, so that's the reason. Because before you read already, you have that preconceived idea, emanation. That's Neoplatonic. And some people do not want to read further, or they already sort of, have preconceived. Oh, Prof. Al-Attas is a Neoplatonist, or he subscribed to Neoplatonism, all right, as a philosophy, which he doesn't, of course. Okay, so now you say there seems to be similarities. Let's not deny it. Yes, let's be truthful. Let's not deny. If you look at the system, all right, the ontological, you would say, system or metaphysical system of Plotinus, all right, you would say the founder of Neoplatonism, all right, you can find similarities. Of course, but there are also differences. Okay, so I would take Ibn Rushd point of view, all right, because Ibn Rushd, all right, he's one of the Islamic philosophers, all right, he came after Al-Ghazali, and he's the one who's famous of refuting Imam Al-Ghazali's critique, all right, of philosophers, namely Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, all right. He wrote the Tahafut al-Falasifa, Al-Ghazali. Then Ibn Rushd came 600 years later, something about 600 years. He wrote Tahafut at-Tahafut, all right, the incoherence of the incoherence, all right, meaning critiquing Al-Ghazali's criticism of Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, or the philosophers that came before him. So the philosophers, all right, again here I start from Al-Kindi, they all wrote, most of them, if I'm not mistaken, all right, at least I know Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, they wanted to bridge philosophy and what do you call the Islamic Islam, all right, Islamic religion, or so Ibn Rushd, all right, of course he was a faqih, he's a famous qadi, he's expert in law, but and therefore that's why we always take him as an example, all right, because he's an expert in law, he's an expert in philosophy. Why is he an expert in philosophy, especially Aristotelian philosophy? Because he wrote all sorts of commentaries, all right, short, medium, long commentaries on on Aristotle. So he tried and he wrote a treatise on this, Faslul Maqal. All right, the Kitab Faslul Maqal, and he said, all right, he was trying to say philosophy, all right, let's just look at his conclusion. He said it is recommended. In fact, all right, he says it's commanded upon the Muslims to study philosophy. All right, because what is the aim of the religion, all right, or here it's not really talking about Sharia as the law, but the Islam itself asking us to learn about the signs, all right, in the universe, which point to the Asani, the one who is the architect or the creator of the universe. So if both are, all right, if both are, that is their aim, then why would you, then there's no, you would say, conflict. So therefore it is encouraged also to study philosophy. Why I mention here? Because Neoplatonism is a philosophical school, and you have to admit, all right, we cannot deny, because it's in the text. You know, if you read them, they say Aflatun Ilahi, the divine Plato, all right, Aristotle, the first teacher, all right, and they talk of Plotinus. Okay, so, and in terms of the you know, following, tracking, all right, the what do you call, of the schools of philosophy, all right, falsafa, or from philosophia. I'm sorry if I have to go back, all right, from the beginning, because like I say, I don't want truncated, all right, view or information of things. All right, so what is falsafa? Is the Arabized version of, you would say, philosophia. Philo, love, and sophia, wisdom, love of wisdom. All right, basically, what philosophy aims, philosophy in general. If you say, starting from Greek philosophy, of course, there's Chinese, Indian, Egyptian, all. But in relation to Islamic philosophy, I would say it's written, it's maktub, that we encountered Greek philosophy in our history, in our intellectual history, all right, because of Alexandria, all right, Iskandaria, after the fall of Athens as the center of learning and the sciences. All right, so not much of the Indian sources came to the Muslims at that time. Chinese, minimal, or in fact negligible. What really, all right, they were at that time was so active, all right, was Greek or Hellenistic, all right, meaning there are strands of other schools of philosophy, Egyptian, all right, Christian, and or whatever, all right. So according to Ibn Rushd, all right, he says that if, especially in relation to philosophy, and as Prof. Al-Attas say, one is at the ontological level. That means at the level of reality. Second is at the logical level. If it's at the logical level, what is the instrument of knowledge? Your reason. Your reason, or your mind, or your intellect, or your intelligence, or you say ratiocination, reason, right? So if that is the case, then because of our encounter, engagement with the Greeks, because before that was the Greek center, all right, Alexandria, before it fell to Muslim hands, all right. So that's why it was called Alexandria, from Alexander the Great. I mean, that's what history tells us. So, okay, so this is this is the strength. All right, so that was everything was basically that. And that was how the translation of the Greek text to first Syriac and then Arabic. That's how we got the knowledge of Greek philosophy. All right. And so these Muslim philosophers, all right, what were they doing? They were philosophers, right? They were not really in line, all right, in terms of the discipline of tasawwuf, although many of them were also Sufis or practicing the spiritual life. Maybe at that time there was no tariqas, official tariqas, but they have a spiritual life. All right, so as philosophers, they basically acquired that knowledge from philosophy. And at that time, what were the texts? From Aristotle, from Plato, from Plotinus. So they studied also Neoplatonism, as you call it. And of course, but their worldview as a Muslim is Islamic. So what do? They compare. As what Prof. Al-Attas did in this book. But he didn't compare with the Greeks. All right, not so much, but he does compare with Western. All right, but what did he compare? Between philosophers, mutakallimun, and Sufis. Because only with that, when you make comparisons, then your analysis is complete. Look at Al-Ghazali. Before he criticized the philosophers, he said he studied 2 years the text of the philosophers, especially Ibn Sina. That's why he says Ibn Sina was his spiritual teacher. He didn't meet Ibn Sina physically, but he studied the ideas of Ibn Sina. And then he criticized. Well, he didn't criticize fully. All right, if you look at Al-Munkid min ad-Dalal, all right, his text, he did delineate. All right, of course, the bigger text is Tahafut, the At-Tahafut. All right, so he delineated what's acceptable about philosophy, what's not acceptable, what's harmful, what's not harmful, what is stay away, stay away. But he says you cannot forbid those who need that knowledge. So if, for example, you forbid, let's forbid all these books, philosophers, Shi'is, Neoplatonists. Why not you ban postmodernist books? Wittgenstein and who else did we study last semester? All right, Derrida. They're more harmful actually. All right, so following that tradition, you want to make a complete analysis, you must know, like Al-Ghazali, you must be better than the best of the opposite side. Then you can criticize. Then people will take your criticism seriously, he says. So now, so these philosophers, what did they do? They compare Neoplatonism because the one, two, on, aren't we talking about the one when we say Kul huwallahu ahad? So they want to know more. So here again, here also Prof talk about the differences and the similarities. He didn't throw away the similarities. He acknowledged them. He acknowledged the differences. He didn't say, oh, this is a difference, hide it under the carpet. No, the same thing the philosophers did. The same thing the philosophers did. So in our readings, in subsequent generations' readings, we emphasize more the similarities rather than the differences, perhaps. Or some schools or philosophers who were, you would say, more, like integration. Right now, there's also, okay, I'm applying now in the present context. There are also debates. Should we call integration of knowledge or Islamization of knowledge? That's the debate now, right? So if you talk about integration of knowledge, where is the word Islamic? It looks like, Oh, are we taking Islamic disciplines and sciences the same level as the Western sciences when you talk about integration? But if you talk about Islamization, we are very clear. Well, we just take the Islamic elements. But how do we know these are Islamic elements if you don't study the Western elements, right? Or if you don't make comparison. So this was what the philosophers did. And now your generation, all right, have to do that in relation to modern contemporary philosophy, Western philosophy. And there's some Muslims who are also, influenced by that trend. All right, they say, no, we are Muslims, but still, what is their perspective? Still, Western or postmodernism, if we talk about as a philosophical school. Okay, so that is how I would answer your question. And we will look at the text. Similarities, differences. So there are those who read, scholars who read the text, who try to interpret the text, write the text, and perhaps emphasize the similarities. Or they will say, oh, sounds like Neoplatonism. But there are some who would just very nonchalantly say, what do they say? Islam, is the Muslim philosophers or the Islamic philosophers took from Neoplatonism lock, stock, and barrel. They say it's the same. All right. Or just because, all right, they also quoted the philosophers. Of course, they have to quote Plotinus. They have to quote Aristotle because that was not their idea. That was their idea, their predecessors' ideas in the philosophical tradition. Okay, so what do you say? So when you say that is it Neoplatonism? Well, some scholars would easily say, yes, this is Neoplatonism, smack in the face. But those who are careful, those who are attentive, and I would think Prof is one of them, in the sense that he will use the terminology which will not bring that fitnah. But there are others who hold the opposing view and say, why not we use, so that in our books and in our lectures, we can explain or qualify the difference. You see, it's two sides of the same coin. Like, for example, T.J. Winter, Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, he still used Islamic Cambridge Companion to, he says Islamic theology or Islamic something, because sometimes they call Islamic scholastic theology, Islamic rational theology, all right? So he still used the word theology, but we know, his worldview is definitely Islamic, and he has his reservations about Islamic philosophy, which are taken from the Greeks. All right, so there's two versions. Which approach you want to use to explain to your audience? All right, so if Ibn al-Rushd says, so what does Ibn al-Rushd say? Well, he wants to bridge philosophy and Islam, or the teachings of Islam, or the Sharia view, or the way. Actually, he didn't just talk about just the specific what do you call jurisprudence, the legal what do you call the science of jurisprudence of faith. All right, so this is how this come about. Your question, all right, Brother Khalid, why is it? So you can, if you know, then you can determine for yourself, are they influence? And then I will end the class, since it's nearly 12. All right, I was saying to myself, I have to read a few lines from this text. No, I'm not doing justice to the guided reading class. All right, so but anyway, there's no time. So I will end with, Imam Al-Ghazali, he was saying, perhaps, because he was explaining in his Al-Munqidh min ad-Dalal, he was saying, when people did accuse him, oh, his ethics is ilmul ahlak. All right, sound like, sound like Aristotelian ethics. The virtue ethics. Well, we read, right? We read, all right, his concept of wast or wasata, the moderate, the doctrine of the mean. Sounds like Aristotelian ethics of moderation, between extremes and deficiency. All right. But of course, our Imam Al-Ghazali was, using Islamic terms, Quranic terms, and he modified. So he did say that a horse carriage, all right, if you are in a horse carriage, something to that effect, he said, a horse carriage who came later from the origin, from the first one before you, the tracks of the hooves of the horses may fit in the earlier tracks. So do we say, you are riding a different horse, different carriage. The other one is riding a different horse carriage. So it's not the same. But he says it is possible that the tracks fit. All right. So that's what would Al-Ghazali, Imam Al-Ghazali say. And, maybe I won't end it there. Well, according to Ibn Rushd, there's only one truth. All right, no double truth. And he also says, all right, a truth cannot contradict another truth. All right. So you can say many expressions, like Prof. Al-Attas, he never negated the mutakallimun, never negated the philosophers, although he affirmed the Sufi metaphysicians. But, the matter of interpretation. And like Imam Al-Ghazali said, they are all seekers of truth. All right, Wallahu alam. It's 12 o'clock, so I will finish here. We didn't start readings, but it's all right. It's good that you ask questions so that we clear some of the doubts, some of the ambiguities and the haze, all right, in this subject. All right, so I pass Wallahu alam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mega. I would like to remind all participants to fill in the attendance form that we have put in the chat box. Again, I would thank you very much, Doctor. Jazakumullah khair as your precious time and effort in making us understand this topic, this heavy topic. Thank you very much, Doctor. See you all.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, thank you. I will leave the call. All right, Hubayb.
All right, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Right. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr.
Waalaikumsalam.